Okay, 7th graders, today's assignment is 3.1 Evolutionary History, and your learning targets. I can predict shared structures based on the traits of common ancestors and their descendant species. So we're going to do a little prediction of shared structures this time. Okay? So, to your guys' OneNote, you guys should add related. Sharing a common ancestor population means they are related at some point. And key concept 6, among any three species, the two species that separated most recently, so if we're looking at an evolutionary tree, the ones that separated most recently are the most closely related to each other. Okay, imagining changes in new environments for your guys' bell ringer. We know that when one population is divided into two new environments, the two new populations might change and become different over time, similar to the evolutionary tree below. So here's your ancestor population. This was separated into two environments, and they evolved into descendant species 1 and descendant species 2. Imagine that each of the new descendant species was split again into two new environments, and even more time went by. Now there are 4 new environments. Use the tree below to think about the differences between those 4 new populations over millions of years, and then answer your question below. So as a reminder, remember this doesn't happen overnight. This doesn't just happen by generation. This happens over a very long period of time. So here it talks about millions of years. So now we've got descendant species A, B, C, and D. Okay? Which group of descendant species is most likely to have body structures that are the most different from the ancestor population? So if we look at our common ancestor, which one's going to be the most different, do you think? Okay, 1 and 2, or A, B, C, and D. Okay? And then, so we're just looking at 1 and 2 being right here, and then A, B, and C, and D right here. Okay, and then which descendant species is most likely to have body structures that are the most different from descendant species B? So if we look at descendant species B, which one is going to be the most different from that? So 1, C, or A. Okay, and then finally, when you compare different species, how can you tell which species are the most closely related than others? So which ones are more closely related? How do you know? Okay. So once you guys take a second, pause the video. Once you guys are done with your bell ringer and your notebook, you guys can come back and we will talk about this little hands-on activity that you guys will just kind of do in your brain. Okay, so pause, finish up your 3-slide 5, and then we'll come back. All right, so for this activity 3, hands-on activity, you guys would be using connects in class, but obviously you guys are at home working on this, so you guys won't have the connects necessarily. So the 4 species on the right, H, I, J, and K, I'm going to go ahead and grab a draw tool here. So here's H, I, J, and K, are currently alive, and the rest of the species are extinct. So these are all extinct species. Okay, that's the first thing you guys need to know about this. Okay, 3 species A, F, and G were blank. So these are my just solid colors right here. A, F, and G are all blank. You guys are going to be obviously figuring out what those species might have looked like. And then finally, 2 species, in this case D and E. So here's D, here's E. Resulted in no descendant species, so we don't have any branching coming off of those, okay? Even if a species comes earlier in the timeline, it isn't necessarily the ancestor of another species, okay? So those are what you guys need to kind of remember going forward with this little family tree, okay? So with the connects, only species H and I have this structure, so you guys will go ahead, take a look at H and I. You guys might need to zoom in a little bit if you need be. Okay, so take a look at H and I, and what do they have that no other species has? So obviously we can't tell what A, F, and G have because they are fill in the blank later, but you guys can look and see B, D, C, E, K, J, I, and H. So what do they have that no other species have? You guys can just kind of use the colors to help you guys point this out. Okay, so what do they have that no other have? If there's more than one item, you guys will click in that box and type more than one item there. Okay, next one is only species J and K have this structure. So again, you guys will just look at J and K. You guys will zoom in, and then you guys can just describe by color. So what do J and K have that no other species has? Okay, so obviously it's something that's in common between J and K, but that no other species share in common. And then species H, I, J, and K all have this structure. So what do they all have? Okay, then you guys are going to kind of recreate what species A, F, and G look like by using body structures that each species probably had. Look at the descendants and or common ancestors of each missing species to figure out the likely body structures. So for this, I want you guys to focus definitely on color and shape. So for instance, if you guys are looking like this little structure here, you guys could do as like a white circle or a white little like flower looking type thing. Okay, obviously there's blue sticks. There's yellow half circles, so you guys could do like yellow half circles for those. There's little gray quarter circles. There's little white features, and then there's little red kind of 180-degree connectors. So you guys can use those to kind of predict what do you think F would have looked like, what do you think G would have looked like, and what do you think A would have looked like. So you guys are going to draw those species in on slide 8, so you guys can just use your draw tool. Again, make sure it complies with the color that you guys see. Okay. Which species, I, J, or K, is most closely related to species H? So you guys can look at H here. Which species, I, J, or K, is the most closely related? And then what is your evidence? So what do you observe? Okay, so that's what I want for your evidence today is what structures do you observe? So give me some specific, like the yellows, the blues, the whites, the grays, the reds, whatever the case is. Tell me those. Okay, which species, I, J, or K, is the closest to species J? What is your evidence? So again, explain what your evidence is. That should be the specific body structures. Okay, so go ahead, take a second, complete through slide 9, your activity 3 hands-on, and when you're done, come back to this video and I'll explain the modeling tool. Okay, launch the Evolutionary History modeling tool. So when I open that, it should look like this. Okay, so you guys can see any of the blue is places that we need to add some modifications. So use the shared structures to show which species are more closely related. Place species C, D, and E into the tree based on shared structures. So if we look at this, we've got species C, D, and E. You guys are going to place them into the correct spot here. Okay. Press the new structure boxes to indicate which new structure appeared. So based on how you guys place those, then you're going to go back and say, all right, what new structure evolved between this common ancestor and this descendant species? Okay, and then finally, as you guys have done in all of these, press indicate organism type and select an option for each species. So I've got indicate organism type here, 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 and here. So I need to click on those and define them as either the common ancestor population or the descendant species. Okay, and then finally annotate your model to show which species are more closely related. You guys don't have to do that. From species C, D, and E, which pair of species is most closely related? Explain how you know. So screenshot, copy, and paste your completed modeling tool here. And then from species C, D, and E, which pair of species is most closely related? Explain how you know. So use some direct evidence, like what body structures do they share? What do they have different? Those kinds of things. So answer that question here. Okay, go ahead, take a second, pause this video, complete through slide 12, and when you're done, come on back. Okay, finally comparing embryos, evidence for common ancestors. You guys have this article to read. It looks like this, where you guys are going to look at different embryos. If you guys look at this, it's kind of fun to not look at what comes to the right here, but take a look and figure out, can you figure out what organism each of these is going to turn into, and then kind of see how it looks different and figure out what animal it's turning into. So read that very well, and then you guys are going to answer these questions using your own words. You may not copy and paste from the article. Why do paleontologists study embryos? Okay, what is one way that fish and chickens have similar structures as embryos, but different structures once they are born? So when they're just embryos, what's similar about them? And then what's one way that they're the same ones or different once they're born? And then why do they have similarities like these? So when they're embryos, why do they have these similarities? Okay, finally, your guys' exit ticket for today. You guys have these shapes to model different species. 2 students were challenged with taking imaginary species, A through G, and placing them on an evolutionary tree. Their models are shown below. So this is one student's, this is another's. Okay, inspect the models and then answer the questions. Explain how the 2 trees are different and why you think the model you indicated above is correct. So first of all, take a look. Which do you guys think is correctly placed, model 1 or model 2? So circle your answer here. And then explain why the 2 trees are different and why you think the model you indicated above is correct. Use the words in your explanation. So shared structure, related, inherit, descendant species, and ancestor population. So make sure you guys use those words to help you guys to explain your answers. Okay, and then once you guys are all done, double check that you guys have completed this whole assignment and you may hand it in. I hope you guys are having a great day and I'll talk to you soon.